Jake Morrison and his mates were appalled when they witnessed Zara Washington being made a member of the cheer squad at Westfield. Hi, to them she was a black girl who didn't fit in with their traditionally white cheerleaders, so they attempted to eliminate her. Exactly what transpired when entitled Bullies deadly underestimated a soldier's daughter. Before we proceed, comment, where in the world? You rewatching from and don't forget to subscribe because tomorrow's tale is one you woe and want to miss the gymnasium? Hummed with anxious tension as 23 girls waited in line for last cheer team announcements. Zara Washington stood third from the left, her hands tight at her sides in spite of the pounding in her chest from some of the other girls. Zara maintained her expression neutral, professional, the way her father had drilled into her from across the gym. She felt stares on her. Jake Morrison was glaring, his jaw clenched. She said with a smile, attempting to push by. Jake moved over slightly to the right, not directly blocking her matter. Factly. Brandon shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent as Jake gave the kind of smile that never made it to the eyes like Barbie dolls. Zara leaned to one side. A little Tyler moved forward, like girls who are supposed to be here, girls who get it. With no further word, feeling their stares sear into her spine. Meanwhile, the three guys stood, serving her disappear into the, "Oh, she for sure thinks she has something special," Jake answered. His jaw nodded. "Did you see the way she stared at us like we were the issue?" Tyler's face contorted in disgust. "I am not going to cheer alongside that. My dad's going to freak when he hears about they made some diversity placement on the team instead of Ashley Martinez. Ashley waited 2 years for this. It's not fair, man." Jake shook his head. "Our fans do not want to see that representing our school. They want actual Eagle girls, not some he let." Crowd, their faces becoming darker as other students flowed around them towards the parking lot. "Are you kidding me?" At this moment, Jake's tone lowered so that only his friends could hear. "They actually put her on the squad." Tyler spat in the direction of the trash can. "This precisely the type of trash that ES destroying our school. What ES next? Are they going to make us kneel for the anthem? To dude, what if she S one of those girls who thinks she S above?" "I get it." Zara tightened her bag strap. "This school is about being the best academics and being a reflection of our community and making it proud. That S what I am going to do to Jake." S smile wavered for a second before coming back. "We'll just see about that football season. S, a long one, lots of games, lots of stress. Not everyone S built for it, lucky me." "Oh, I am sure you did S just that. Our fans have expectations about what their cheerleaders should look like." The words hung in the air like smoke. Other students slowed their conversations, sensing tension. "And what exactly should they look like?" Zara asked, her voice steady, despite the heat building in her chest. "You know," Jake shrugged, "traditional, the kind of girls who represent Eagle way, but making it obvious she needed to squish through." "So you read the new member of our cheer team that S right?" Zara locked eyes with him. Interesting selection by Coach Peterson. Tyler, his voice had just enough volume for surrounding students to catch. "Very progressive, I earned. He leaned over to whisper something to Tyler, who shook his head in disgust. Brandon simply looked bewildered, taking his cue. "Congratulations to our new Eagles coach." Peterson clapped. "Team meeting tomorrow after school. We have a lot of work to do before homecoming." As the celebration mounted, she de-aced every routine, nailed every mark, and smiled. Until her cheeks hurt during 3 excruciating days. The only way they knew how, by attacking. But what Jake could unsee past Zara's calm silence was tactical training from her Navy SEAL father. They believed she was vulnerable. Believed she'd break down like all his past victims. He was horribly mistaken, and Zara Washington was about to show him. Over his chest, while Brandon Mills trailed behind, desperate to belong, "The following girls have earned their place on this year's squad," Coach Peterson continued. She read through the list alphabetically. Each name met with squeals and embraces. "Zara Washington. Tryouts, ladies. You've all demonstrated amazing spirit and commitment." Coach Peterson started her clipboard, clutched like a shield. "This year, S Westfield High varsity cheerleading squad will make our school proud, and proud Zara." S gaze scanned the gym, soaking up the ocean of blonde ponytails and spray tans. Circling her, she spotted the football team trickling in through the side doors, their practice having just finished. Jake Morrison led the group, his quarterback swagger clear, even in stinky practice uniforms. Tyler Knox stood beside him, thick arms crossed. The words struck her like lightning. She actually made it around her. "Congratulations," laced with barely contained surprise about her. "Zara, grabbed her gym bag, and made a move toward the exit. The football players stood stationed by the doors. A handy coincidence that caused her heart to pick up speed. "Excuse me? Spot just like everyone else," Zara replied. Pride, blonde hair, school spirit, the total package. She shoved past them in silence. "Everyone?" Brandon finally interrupted, his voice unsure, but attempting to keep up with their vibe-like acts, all intelligent and the words hang. But his intent was obvious to his friends. Brandon nodded enthusiastically, desperate to be accepted. "Yeah, exactly, like what are people going to think when they see our cheerleaders? This isn't that sort of school." "Well, she's going to." Nothing taken, but shuffled about, she looked up the hallway, catching Jake Morrison. Oars. Gaze 3 lockers down, he was speaking with some sophomore girl, but his gaze kept wandering to Zara. Weird. She grumbled, restacking her textbooks by third period. News of the new cheer roster had spread. Zara sensed the stares in each hallway, heard the hushed gossiping that ceased when she walked by. Some students smiled at her. Westfield S. Going woke now, rip real Eagle pride. Fran not my cheerleader. The post already had 37 likes, and several comments that made her nauseous. Most were tactfully worded, so as not to use outright slurs, but the implication was as clear as day. Diversity hire much she does, and even look like she fits in here. "There goes the neighborhood," Brittany would whisper each time. Still getting used to the new formation. By the end of practice, Zara had been stepped on twice and elbowed once during a turn sequence. All accidents, according to Brittany's apologetic smile walking to her car afterward. Zara noticed the football team finishing their practice on the adjacent field. Jake Morrison was deep in conversation with Coach Reynolds. Both of Zara screenshotted all of it before blocking the account, which was in the name of Eagle Pride. "Learn soon what sort of school this actually is," Tyler said, cracking his knuckles. Football season away that afternoon during cheer practice. The atmosphere was tense. Coach Peterson worked them through some simple routines, but Zara felt the sidelong glances from a few of her teammates. Madison and a couple of others were truly friendly, but some others looked like they were waiting to see what would unfold. "All right, ladies, let us go over the homecoming routine again," Coach Peterson shouted. "Zara, you'll be in the back row for now, until you know all the formations, as they s going to be real enlightening for her." Jake's smile resumed cold and calculating. "Oh yeah, real enlightening." The bullying began small. Nearly harmless enough. Shoulder knocked her chair hard enough to push her back. "Oops," he muttered without even slowing down or turning around. "Fine," she typed out, then erased it. "Good learning the routines. Pick me up for dinner. Want to hear all about it? I'll drive myself home, see? You there that evening, sitting in front of her dad at their kitchen table?" Zara fidgeted with her grilled chicken as Commander Washington regarded her with the intense scrutiny that had earned him his place as a military commander. "Sorry about that," her friend Jessica scowled. "That was strange. Tyler S. never liked that. Maybe today is one of those days for him," Zara said, but already she was mentally filing the encounter away. The real message came in 7th period study hall. Zara was taking out her phone to look at the time and discovered a notification on Instagram. Someone had tagged her in a post. The photo was to write off as coincidence. Monday morning, Zara arrived at her locker to discover it slightly ajar. Her combination lock dangled open, and someone had reshelved her books encouragingly, but others appeared puzzled, like she was a problem they could not solve. "Hey Zara," Madison Clark, one of the older cheerleaders, approached her. "Following English class, I'm so thrilled you got on the team. We are going to have such a fantastic season." "Thanks, Madison. I am so looking forward to getting started. Do I allow anyone to make you feel as though you don't fit in? Okay, you deserve this." Just like the rest of us, the fact that Madison felt compelled to speak confirmed what Zara was thinking. People were gossiping at lunch. She sat with her typical group of friends who were part of the honor society when Tyler Knox passed by their table, his screenshot of the school, his notice of the new cheer team with Zara's name in red circle. The caption said, "Guess 2024 clearly staged." Her hands were trembling lightly as she stowed her phone lined up. Brittany Stevens, a junior with perfectly curled blonde hair, positioned herself directly in front of Zara during the routine. She kept stepping backwards, slightly forcing Zara to adjust her spacing. "Sorry." Them looking over toward the parking lot where the cheerleaders were unloading their equipment. Her phone beeped with a text from her dad. "How was the first practice, Warrior?" "Quiet tonight," he noticed, "just exhausted." New Team a lot to learn, huh? He put down his fork. And how are your new teammates handling you? Zara hesitated. Her father had taught her the importance of honesty when threats were real. But she'd also come to recognize his protective nature. Most of them are all right there, as always that period of adjustment. Phone to display the Instagram post, his face clouded as he scanned the comments. This is only the beginning, he said softly. Anonymous posts practice accidents, little border skirmishes. They're retesting you to see how you will react. So what do? Document everything, screenshots, witnesses, times, and dates. But don't respond yet. Let them reveal their hand. And if it gets out of hand, Commander Washington's smile was a razor. Edged thin then, we'll talk about your choices, but Zara let us not assume. Too much about motivation. What other motivation would there be? Principal Martinez moved uncomfortably. I'll talk with some students, Tyler. Stood up, all 6'3" of him looming over her. You calling me a liar? But remained steady with her voice. At least my father showed me how to be a good human being. Tyler's face turned red. You think you're superior to us strutting around here? Like this is your domain outside the entrance, about 3 feet wide and 6 in deep? Most students walked around it without thinking Zara was texting her father about pickup arrangements. When she heard footsteps behind her, she looked up just as Jake Morrison grabbed her left arm. Hey, new girl, got a message for you. Before she could react, Tyler Knox seized her right arm, while Brandon Mills positioned himself to block the view from the parking lot. What are you? I think I have a right to be here as much as anyone else. No, Brandon at last addressed her, his voice trembling but intent on impressing his peers. You really do. On several students had whipped out phones, anticipating drama. Zara found herself outnumbered and circled with dozens of cameras, possibly capturing her humiliation. We'll see about that. Shh. The cafeteria fell silent. Jake 8. Morrison and Brandon Mills stepped between Tyler, forming a wall of Letterman jackets. The words "you people" rang through her head. The remainder of the day, Friday, brought the event that turned everything around. It was game day, and the whole school was abuzz with excitement for the homecoming game. Against their arch-nemesis, Zara had at last mastered the routines well enough to be moved up to the second row, and despite it all, she felt a true thrill at performing in front of the crowd. I'm saying you need to move your foot, Zara retorted calmly, or what? Jake moved forward. You going to run crying to Daddy? Oh wait, I heard he is some kind of military guy. Must be embarrassing having a daughter who can't deal with high school. See what I can learn in the meantime? Maybe keep a low profile that afternoon? The actual message came at lunch. Zara was passing by the football table. When Tyler Knox pushed his foot out, what about the ones who aren't all right? She met his gaze sharply. What makes you think, Zara? His voice held the patience of someone who de-questioned enemy interrogations. Choosing the wrong girl to bully. As Zara went upstairs to do homework, she did, and noticed the black pickup truck that had been sitting across the street for the last hour, or the 3 figures inside staring at her house. With increasing anger, tomorrow would bring new problems, and Jake Morrison was already mapping out his next step. The harassment intensified in the next 2 weeks, like water pressure building behind a dam. Tuesday morning, Zara discovered her cheer shoes were gone from her gym locker. She'd left them there after practice the night before, and now I didn't raise you to lie to me, especially. Perhaps they fell out, Brittany offered with feigned distress. These old lockers are so finicky. Saw a new low. Someone had left a banana on her car windscreen with the note Monkey See. Monkey do. Zara binned the paper and the banana, but her hands were shaking with anger as she drove home Thursday morning. She came to her locker and found it vandalized. Someone had etched "Go home" into the metal door. When she told Principal Martinez, he let out a heavy sigh. I love maintenance. Check it out, but vandalism is difficult to prove without witnesses, he told her. You sure you want about your safety? What's going on? She sighed, taking out her. For now, you remain vigilant and you remain intelligent. The VA made a mistake. We're missing Coach Peterson. Had to borrow her a pair that were 2 sizes larger. That is weird, said Madison, frowning. Who steals someone's shoes? Zara didn't say a word, but she caught Jake Morrison smirking at her big shoes in their joint chemistry class Wednesday. To make a fuss over this? Sometimes it's better to let these things blow over. So I should just accept someone destroying school property because of my race. Now tripped but caught herself. Watch where you're going, he said loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear. You tripped me. The words landed like a slap. Zara's cheeks flushed with heat. Said softly, and then walked away behind her. She overheard Jake's voice ring out across the still cafeteria. Yeah, walk away, that's what you people do best. She was walking toward the gym for final preparations when she noticed the puddle recent rain had created a muddy depression right doing. Zara demanded, trying to wriggle free, teaching you a lesson in knowing your place. Jake growled. They pushed her back towards the puddle. Zara attempted to dig her heels in, but her sneakers could not get a hold on the wet concrete. Stop it. She bellowed loudly enough that a few students stopped and looked around. Oops. Tyler said as they pushed her into the mud. Zara crashed into the muddy water with a hard impact her uniform skirt, ripping on a jagged piece of broken concrete that lay hidden in the surface. Cold, dirty water seeped through her clothing as she struggled to stand up. The three boys stood over her, none longer going out of their way to conceal their amusement. Looks like you slipped, Jake boomed. How clumsy. A few cheerleaders had emerged, attracted by the ruckus. Madison gasped and ran forward. Oh my God, Zara, are you all right? Tyler called over her shoulder. Really brings out your eyes? The Eagles had won 2,814, and she could hear celebrations ringing out from the field house. But the win was empty. She'd spent the entire game on the sidelines in a borrowed uniform that was loose on her body. Constant reminder of her embarrassment, her phone had buzzed with messages. Some encouraging from Madison and her Honor Society friends, others sending her links to social media posts that made her feel queasy. The video of her being pushed into the puddle had already been shared 43 times, the sensation of cold mud seeping into her clothes. The sound of their laughter, the taste of humiliation on her lips, above all, the absolute certainty. The door still wearing her dirty uniform, he glanced at her once, then put down his coffee mug with careful precision. And Brandon Mills. It began with the comments of how I do unfit in, then missing shoes. Trashed locker social media posts today. They pushed me in a mud puddle and me to lay low and let it blow over. Something dangerous flashed in her father's eyes. Did he now? Dad, I know what you're rethinking, but what am I thinking? That you want to go to the school and deal with this yourself. But that LL just make this worse for me. They LL say I unfight my own battles. Commander Washington looked at his daughter with newfound respect. You rewrite but this and keep going on, I know that front of half the cheer squad and ripped my uniform. Her father sat there without speaking, his face becoming steadily darker. When she was done, silence hung between them for a few heartbeats. Show me the social media posts, he said softly. What happened? Zara had intended to segue into the subject gradually, perhaps begin with the small things and build up to today. But at sight of her father's tight face, the same look he'd had when briefing his SEAL team before Risky, that this would never happen again? Again, Madison pulled her to her feet with tissues and apologies, but Zara could hardly hear them. She was remembering her father. This voice, sometimes you have to make your own justice when the system let you down tonight. She would tell him it all, and tomorrow the real battle would begin, Jake guffawed. Maybe now you'll think twice about where you belong. I'm all right. Zara got out, but her voice trembled. Mud covered her face and arms, and her ripped uniform revealed her dignity as well as her skin. Brittany Stevens took out her phone. This was going on Instagram, #epic fail. Don't you dare, Madison snapped. But Zara knew she was too late tonight. Half the school would witness her humiliation. The football players were already sauntering away, high-fiving one another like they just won a touchdown. Nice uniform. Zara stood in the muddy water for another few moments, not because she could not stand, but because she wanted to commit this moment to memory. Zara had waited in her car in the school parking lot for 20 minutes after the game, still clad in her muddy, torn uniform with headings such as diversity. Hire gets reality check, and when keeping it real goes wrong at last, she drove home. Commander Washington was standing in the kitchen when she opened. Mission, she was explaining it all to him all at once. 3 football players have been bothering me since I made the team. Jake Morrison, Tyler Knox. Zara handed over her phone. Commander Washington scrolled through the comments, his jaw clenching with every swipe. And the school. The reaction. Principal Martinez instructed. Why I need you to instruct me, instruct you. What Zara met his eyes straight on everything, how to protect myself, how to fight back, how to ensure this never, ever happens again. Her dad was silent for a good minute, considering her words. Physical fighting should always be a last resort, Zara. Once you step over that line, they already did it. They touched me. Today? Fair point. He leaned back in his chair. But there are better ways to deal with bullies, smarter ways, ways that leave them no room to cry victimhood. What do you mean? I mean, you David Washington's daughter, you smarter than the boys, you more disciplined. And you possess something they do, into what that patience. If they do something about the situation, Tyler complained. Apparently some of the girls are getting upset good. Jake said let them get upset, maybe they pressure Coach Peterson to make some roster changes. Jake Morrison is the team leader Zara stated star quarterback rich family his dad owns. Morrison Construction, they constructed half the buildings in town. Weaknesses, he is being wooed by a few colleges. Football is his life, good what with the rest. Tyler beats up his dad is on the school board. Tyler is not as smart as Jake, but he has tougher scholarship kid. I believe football is his way out, and the third one, Brandon Mills' follower, rather than a leader desperate to belong with the other to his parents. Divorce, lives with his mom. Commander Washington nodded in approval. You've been listening, you've learned the lesson. One never strike when your adversary least expects it. They're overconfident at the moment. Untouchable, that when they mess up. What do kind of mess ups? The kind that leave traces, the kind that reveal them. For who they are really, he stood up. But first we must ensure you can defend yourself. If this does get physical again. You mean fighting training? I mean survival training? There's a difference. His face became serious. What had happened today was only the start, Zara. They elled up the ante. Because you did and crack. Are you ready for that, Zara? Remembered the mud? The giggles, the cameras capturing her embarrassment. I'm ready for whatever it takes, then we begin tomorrow. But do not forget we not only learning you to fight, we relearning you to win Saturday. Morning introduced Zara to her first lesson in tactical awareness. They began at 6 o'clock a.m. in the basement, which had been converted into a training area years ago. Punching bags were suspended from reinforced ceiling beams, and thick mats covered the concrete floor. Forget everything you think you know about fighting. He started circling her, slowly moved TV shows, video games. They all garbage. Real combat is about efficiency, not entertainment. What if that doesn't work? Brandon asked Jake, his face set in a hard line. Then we escalate, make her so unhappy. She has no choice but to transfer schools. How far are we talking? Tyler leaned forward. Interested as far as it takes. This is our school, our team, our traditions. I'm not letting. And a father who spent 20 years learning how to cancel threats. His smile was cold as winter steel. Tell me everything you know about them, their schedules, their habits, their weaknesses. We are going to stage this like a military operation. Meanwhile, in another part of town at Jake Morrison's house, the 3 football players were celebrating their win and more. Then one way did you see her face when she hit that water? Brandon laughed, taking parents or whatever. Brandon. His tone had a hint of concern. Tyler snorted. Tell them. What, that she's accident prone and fell in a puddle? We did? And do anything wrong? Just 3 guys walking to practice? Who happened to be around when she spilled? Exactly, Jake? Agreed. And even if she tries to make something of it, who's going to believe her over us? My dad practically built. Another sip from his pilfered beer, priceless. The highlight was seeing her attempt to play tough afterwards. Tyler contributed. It's like she was thoroughly embarrassed. Jake settled back in his gaming chair. Content. That will send her packing, she does. And belong, and we not going to pretend otherwise. Think she'll leave the team? Brandon asked optimistically. Nah. Tyler shook his head. Girls like that are stubborn. She probably double down, try to prove a point, then we have to be more. Creative, Jake said. Couldn't have her thinking she can just ignore us? What if she tells someone like her? New gymnasium, Tyler. Dad sits on the school board. We the Eagle royalty, and she, he shrugged. Not. Brandon nodded eagerly. Plus, coach. Reynolds adores us. Principal Martinez. Whoa. And mess with the football program over some diversity cheerleader. Having an attitude issue. Speaking of which, Tyler pulled out his phone. Check this out. He showed them a group text thread between a half-dozen other football players and their girlfriends. The video of Zara's humiliation was going around with commentary that grew crudder with every share. Tommy Williams said his girlfriend may leave the team. Some outside agent destroy what we've created here. Back at the Washington house, father and daughter were in intense strategic discussion. The secret to any successful mission is intelligence gathering, Commander. Washington elucidated. You must know your targets better than they themselves know. What motivates them, what frightens them, what hurts them most. No choice but to transfer schools. How far are we talking? Tyler leaned forward, interested as far as it takes. This is our school, our team, our traditions. I'm not letting the secret to any successful mission is intelligence gathering, Commander. Washington elucidated. You must know your targets better than they themselves know what motivates them, what frightens them, what hurts them most. Jake Morrison is the team leader Zara stated, star quarterback, rich family his dad owns. Morrison Construction, they constructed half the buildings in town. Weaknesses, he is being wooed by a few colleges. Football is his life. Good, what else with the rest? Tyler beats up his dad is on the school board. Tyler is not as smart as Jake, but he has tougher scholarship, kid. I believe football is his way out. And the third one, Brandon Mills' follower, rather than a leader, desperate to belong with the other to his parents. Divorce, lives with his mom. Commander Washington nodded in approval. You've been listening. You've learned lesson 1. Never strike when your adversary, least, expects it. They overconfident at the moment, untouchable, that S. When they mess up, what do kind of mess ups? The kind that leave traces, the kind that reveal them. For who they are really, he stood up. But first we must ensure you can defend yourself if this does get physical again. You mean fighting training? I mean survival training. Their SA difference. His face became serious. What had happened today was only the start, Zara. They up the ante because you did on crack. Are you ready for that? Zara remembered the mud, the giggles, the cameras capturing her embarrassment. I'm ready for whatever it takes. Then we begin tomorrow. But do we ain't forget, we not only learning you to fight, we relearning you to win. Saturday morning introduced Zara to her first lesson in tactical awareness. They began at 6 o'clock a.m. in the basement, which had been converted into a training area years ago. Punching bags were suspended from reinforced ceiling beams, and thick mats covered the concrete floor. Forget everything you think you know about fighting. He started circling her, slowly moved TV shows, video games. They all garbage. Real combat is about efficiency, not entertainment. Some outside agent destroy what we've created here. Back at the Washington house, father and daughter were in intense strategic discussion. What do you mean? I mean you do and spend energy on flashy moves or dramatic poses. You recognize the threat, neutralize it, and exit 3 seconds or less. He moved behind a punching bag, illustrating throat strike to shatter the windpipe, knee to the solar plexus to take them down, heels stump to shatter the instep. So they coup and pursue you, Zara observed, committing the movements to memory. But before any of that you observe, you study their patterns, their vulnerabilities, their blind spots. Sun Tzu had said, the supreme excellence is to subdue the to go around groups. Tyler cut through the arts corridor, where teachers scarcely walked, and Brandon trailed behind whichever friend was nearest. After 3 days of observation, she had 15 pages of notes. Excellent work, her father said that night, scanning her intelligence. Now, what have you discovered about their weaknesses, Jake? His whole ego is constructed around football and his standing. He's being offered a scholarship by state, an Emmy without a fight, so I learn about them beforehand. You learn about everything, where they are, when they are there, who they speak to, what they are interested in. Information begins now. I need detailed reports on all 3 targets, where they park, what path they take from class to class, who they hang out with, everything. How do I do that without being conspicuous, Commander? Washington grinned. You become invisible. Watch and listen. Become the background, like a spy, just like a spy. Monday morning, Zara started her reconnaissance mission. She is power, and power is leverage. They've practiced the next hour, perfecting rudimentary defensive techniques, how to escape a grab, how to move away, how to attack effectively. In spite of her smaller size, Zara's muscles ached, but she gritted it out. Your strength isn't going to be your advantage, he explained it. Speed, intelligence, and the ability to surprise them. They going to expect you to be a victim. Use that expectation on them. By 8 o'clock a.m., Zara was tired but revved up. Her dad gave her a water bottle and a notebook. Your homework showed up at school 30 minutes before class. Placing herself in the library with full view of the students' parking area, Jake Morrison rode up in his black Dodge Challenger at 7:47 a.m., parking in the same location, close to the entrance of the gym. Tyler Knox showed up 3 minutes later in a rusty Ford truck, parking 2 rows forward. Brandon Mills arrived last, Having been dropped off by his mother in a silver Honda Civic during lunch, she sat facing away from the football table, but filmed their conversation patterns using her phone. The S-camera Jake monopolized most of the conversations. Tyler contributed striding commentary and Brandon laughed most of the time at the wrong times between classes. She traced their origins. Jake went out of his way. University and Alabama money problems exist in Tyler's family. I overheard him fighting with his girlfriend about not being able to pay for homecoming dinner in Brandon. He's just desperate to fit in somewhere good now would depend on what they are concealing. Everyone has secrets. Zara, the secret is discovering them. Meanwhile, the three boys became braver in there. Commander Washington's face became serious then. You recall what I taught you about survival. You defend yourself. First strategy second, but from what you've seen, what do you think their next step will be? Zara weighed everything she'd learned about their patterns, their personalities. Zara asked in alarm. The nurse's office has lacked security? These are old anxiety meds that were to be properly disposed of. Taunting, certain that Zara's persistence demonstrated she was vulnerable, they started organizing. Something more significant than mud puddles and pilfered shoes later that night back home. Zara was working on her intelligence reports when her father tapped at her bedroom. Doorhouse, the spying going good, I think. For the first time in his life of privilege, college scouts do unsign students with drug possession offenses. Zara gazed at the pill. She felt the burden of the choice. This could destroy his whole future, just like he's attempting to destroy yours. The difference. When she shut the door and turned away 2 hours later during football practice, an anonymous caller phoned the drug hotline at the school. The caller indicated suspicious behavior near Jake Morrison's car and recommended that someone check him out before the student left to go home on something. Principal Martinez and the school resource officer, Deputy Collins, approached Jake during practice. Morrison, we have to search your car, Deputy Collins stated. What as you did and begin this war? What if Zara, her father's voice was firm but soft, these boys pushed you into a mud puddle and embarrassed you in front of. They want me out, so they'll attempt to humiliate me in a manner that could be dismissed or ignored. Then we'd better speed up your training. Tomorrow we begin phase 2. What is phase 2? They've indicated that they woe and leave you alone until you re-out. Sometimes the best way to handle the bully is to strike where it. Because nobody would be dumb enough to mess with it, she walked by casually as if going to her own car, which was 3 rows away. When she could be sure nobody was looking, she opened the Challenger's passenger door fairly fast. The interior of the truck smelled of costly cologne and arrogance. Zara stuck the prescription bottle under the passenger seat, placing it so that it would be seen by anyone who looked but not hurts the most. She slowly nodded, taking the folder with her and sliding it into her backpack. Friday afternoon, Zara lingered in the parking lot following school, stationed behind a van. That gave her an unobstructed view of Jake's Challenger. Most kids had departed. But football practice was still 30 minutes away, ideal timing. Jake's truck remained parked by itself in the premium parking areas designated for senior athletes. Zara had kept him under observation. Father's smile was cutting as a blade, learning how to exploit their strengths as weaknesses. Phase 1 hits Jake Morrison, Commander Washington explained at breakfast Thursday morning. He asked the leaders, so taking him out sends message to the others how her father slid a manila. What would hurt each of them most? Zara thought. This Jake would be completely devastated if his college prospects were taken away. Tyler requires his scholarship, or he couldn't go to college at all. Brandon would break if the other two turned him down. And how might their college prospects be taken away if they got in trouble, like arrested trouble commander? Washington nodded in approval. Or if there were signs of behavior unacceptable to college recruiters. What sort of signs that get what they were doing, know their dynamic? Now Jake S. the strategic thinker, Tyler S. the enforcer, and Brandon S. the weak link. Weak links can be helpful. They usually the first to crack under pressure. Dad, Zara looked up from her notebook. What if they ratchet up before I am ready to fight back? Motivation's something greater than the puddle incident. Folder on the table inside were photocopies of prescription bottles and a small white plastic bag of pills. Where did you get these? His voice was matter of fact. The bottles still have patient information, but the names have been covered. You want me to put drugs in his truck? I want you to set a situation where Jake Morrison is made to face real repercussions. Your friend's a week and knew his routine. He always drove the weight room ahead of practice, leaving the truck unlocked. At once clear, the loose pills had been placed in the middle console amidst spare change and receipts from days past. Her hands were trembling. Why? Jake's composure wavered for the first time since Zara had met him. Anonymous tip about drug use. Probably nothing, but we have to investigate, Jake. His teammates all clustered around, attracted by the excitement. Coach Reynolds jogged over from the far end of the field. What is it here? Just a routine search, coach. Should only take a few minutes. But it took more than a few minutes. Deputy Collins came upon the prescription bottle within moments, and the loose pills in the console sealed Jake's doom. Whose prescription is this? The deputy asked, holding up the bottle with the covered label. I do want to know. I'd never. She was doing cheer motions with the rest of the team, appearing oblivious to the scene on the football field. I do. The next morning at the Washington house, Zara and her dad listened to the news broadcast during dinner. Phase 1 complete. Commander Washington remarked softly. I should be happy about this, Zara said, pushing food across her plate. But all I feel is hollow. That understandable justice is always fulfilling in the moment. But ask yourself this, how many other kids woe and be tormented? Because Jake Morrison discovered that there are repercussions for his behavior? Zara nodded, considering all. And no, he said slowly, but Jake had made a lot of people angry recently. That night, the local news announced the arrest of a star high school quarterback on charges of possession. Jake's father retained a pricey attorney within hours, but the harm was already done. State University pulled there. Remember seeing that before in my life? Jake's voice cracking. From panic, you retelling me someone put drugs in your unlocked truck? Yeah. I guess maybe I do. I know how they got there. Principal Martinez heaved a big sigh. Jake, this is serious. These look like controlled substances. Not on drugs. Ask anyone. Test me right now. That's not the point. Possession is possession. Whether... Looks like Jake's in trouble, Zara answered, keeping her tone. Even drug trouble, from what I can hear. That as insane Jake does and seem like the type. You never really know people, Zara said softly across the field. Jake was being escorted away from practice in handcuffs. Tyler Knox and Brandon Mills stood in stunned silence as their leader was put in the back of a police cruiser. This is messed up. Tyler muttered. Jake, doesn't you use them or not? Coach Reynolds stepped out. Now wait, Principal Martinez. Jake, is one of your best players. There has to be some error, coach. I have to follow procedure. Jake, I'm suspending you, awaiting investigation. Deputy Collins will take care of the legal side. The color faded from Jake's face. Suspended. But we've got playoffs to play. College scouts are coming to scout. Should have considered that before they brought these to school. Deputy Collins said, dropping the evidence into a plastic bag. This is crazy. Someone's framing me. Who would do such a thing? Principal Martinez asked. Jake's eyes scanned the circle of faces that surrounded him, his teammates, his coaches, school officials for the first time. He was really scared. I do not know. But this is mine. From the bleachers where she was stretching with the cheer squad, Zara observed the action taking place. Madison leaned in and whispered, what do you think is going on? Do that stuff. Maybe somebody actually did plant them, Brandon said warily. Who would do such a thing, Brandon? Eyes landed on Zara on the sidelines. Recruitment proposal that evening in Alabama. Did the same the other kids who might spare him. The shame she'd gone through. What phase 2, Tyler Knox, and this time, we going to allow him to self-destruct. Jake's arrest rocked Westfield High by Monday. Good morning. Everyone was talking about the star quarter being charged with serious stuff and losing his college scholarships on the football team. They looked dazed. No chance. Colleges do not gamble with players who have drug records. As a part-time secretary, Tyler needs that football scholarship or else. He is looking at community college and student loans. So we pursue his scholarship opportunities. To her father grunted, begrudgingly. But Tyler different from Jake. He's not arrogant. He's desperate. And desperate people are more deadly. What do you mean? I mean Tyler the kind who will resort to violence when pushed into a corner. We need to tread very cautiously. How we proceed? He took out a little vaping device and a few little bags. Your intel gathering paid off? Tyler's hand curled around his sandwich. Someone ruined his life, and I'm going to uncover who. Zara sat 3 tables away, munching quietly as she listened to every phrase she could sense Tyler's gaze, sweeping the cafeteria for suspects, for someone to blame that afternoon. Commander Washington rebriefed the intelligence dossiers on Tyler Knox' struggling families. And Tyler Knox had filled the leadership void with barely suppressed anger. This is all wrong, Tyler exclaimed at lunch, his voice carrying around the cafeteria. Jake doesn't do that kind of thing. Someone set him up. His girlfriend Ashley massaged his shoulder. Reassuringly, perhaps the charges will not hold. Perhaps ELL regain his scholarships. Financially, he observed Father Works Construction mother Tyler's been selling vapes to freshman kids. In the back of the gym, Zara gazed at the proof. How did you? I tailed him yesterday after school, observed him sell 3 to freshman kids $50 a piece for products that only cost him $20 online. So he's already in violation. Exactly, we do want to have to plant evidence this time. We just have to ensure the right people know what he's already doing. Zara was torn. Dad, what if this destroys his entire future? His family truly needs that scholarship money, Commander Washington. His face turned serious. Zara, this is the worst part of any action. Wondering. What you do is right, but remember what Tyler did to you? Remember the way he laughed? The police will take care of the criminal charges for selling nicotine products to minors by lunch. Word had traveled all over school unwaveringly. And why would I know anything about Tyler's criminal enterprise? I do. Know it. A strange coincidence with Jake being arrested. And now this, perhaps just not as flawless as everyone perceived them to be. Ashley's face turned cold. Tyler S. going to lose everything due to this. The words stung Zara more than she anticipated. She remembered Tyler S. pleading face's family. S. financial woes, the ripple effect of her own actions that S. pretty sad, she said softly, but Tyler did have a hand. Tyler Knox, the linebacker being recruited by 3 state schools, was facing criminal charges and expulsion. Ashley saw Zara at her locker after, but there was still one more target to deal with, and Brandon Mills was already beginning to crack under stress, with Jake expelled and Tyler threatened with criminal charges. Brandon Mills had reached his breaking point Tuesday night. He made the phone calls that would change everything. We need to sit down, he told Jake on the phone. All 3 of us. I figured out who has been doing this to school. Did you hear about Tyler yet? It's all over school. Pretty shocking. Yes. Claiming someone set him up, that someone S targeting the football players. Ashley observed Zara S. When you were muddy, I know, and recall that he's been selling nicotine to 14-year-olds for money. Tyler Knox made his decisions a long time before. We got caught up that night. Zara grappled, and Deputy Collins pulled Tyler out of class, and 20 minutes later, they were rummaging through his locker 12 vaping devices. Small packages of nicotine pods and almost $300 in cash wrapped in a rubber band echoed through the hallway as Tyler S. protests rang out. This is a setup. Someone's gunning for our team, Mr. Knox. We have video evidence of you selling these devices to minors. Principal Martinez said sternly, this is Auntie's setup. This is you being held accountable. You do understand my family needs your family. The video in Principal Martinez's office, along with screenshots indicating Tyler, as Venmo dealings with timestamps corresponding to the video proof. The confrontation ensued during third period with the choice. She considered Tyler S.'s desperation, his family S. financial woes, the way he looked when Jake was arrested, but then recalled his hands on her arms, his words of you people. The laughter of his as she sat in that mud puddle Tuesday afternoon. She made her decision during Tyler's typical time of selling behind the gym. Zara took her stand in the adjacent art chemistry. Principal Martinez needed you to choose. Better you're suspended pending expulsion. Hearing's face cautiously. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Zara stood her ground. Choices. As Ashley turned away, Zara felt the weight of what she'd done justice. Her father had said was always fulfilling. Sometimes it just weighed on her. Us doing what to us? Jake's voice was laced with bitterness as he spoke from under house arrest. Come on, Jake, you really believe it? A coincidence that we all got arrested? Immediately after we hassled that black cheerleader, there was silence at the other. Then you think she did? We do, with that serene expression on her face. Like she is scheming. Another long pause. Meet me at Tyler's house in an hour. I'll come up with a way to get there without my parents noticing. An hour later, the 3 boys were parked at Tyler's garage, their typical swagger overcome by a combination of fear and anger. This is insane, Tyler said after Brandon presented his theory. You're saying some cheerleader orchestrated our downfall? When she was TA treasurer 20 minutes later, they had what they needed. 1247 Maple Street. A quiet, Residential neighborhood about 15 minutes from school. Perfect, Jake answered. Icily. We do this fast and clean. Get our answers, make our point, and take off. What if her parents wake up? Tyler asked. Then we improvise, Jake returned. But one way or another, this ends tonight. The three boys took the next hour to scheme. Their confrontation fueled by desperation and the deadly logic of trapped animals, remember Jake said as they were about to leave. We re not there to hurt her, we re there to get the truth and make her understand the cost of crossing us. Right, Tyler agreed. Jake said, studying the address on Google Street View. Looks like a normal suburban house. Probably no security cameras. Nice and isolated. Jake stood up, his fists clenched. This ends tonight, she thinks. She can ruin our lives and just walk. Away time to show her what real I'm saying someone did, and she's the only one who has motive. Brandon said, consider it, who else would? This I know, she did think about it first. You get arrested for pot after we shoved her around in the mud. Then Tyler gets arrested for selling vapes. Tyler is being charged and you're going to get kicked out. That's the very reason why we need to deal with this. I like it, she wants to play dirty. Let us teach her how dirty we play. This is our opportunity. To take back control, Brandon went on feeding on their escalating anger. She believes. She's clever, believes she can ruin our lives and escape unpunished. Time to instill in her that actions have consequences. Jake produced his phone first. We need to know where she lives. Cue in, corner her at school with all the cameras and onlookers. How do we discover that? Brandon asked. Isley School. Brandon said, his confidence growing as desperation pushed him to be courageous. If she's been leading us on, then it's time we teach her a lesson. What happens when you toy with the wrong ones? What are you talking about, Tyler? Yes, I am. Talking about closing this, we find her take. We're somewhere secluded and find out some answers. And then what? Jake's voice. Someone's been following us, gathering evidence that is impossible. She is just some schoolgirl. Is she? You ever notice how she never fights back? How she just absorbs everything? Want to ruin us? Jake leaned in, his face dark. Even if you rewrite, what do we do about it? I'm under house arrest. Was menacingly silent. Brandon's eyes sparkled with malice. Then we ensure she knows some fights are on. Directory has everyone as addresses for emergency contacts. Tyler grabbed his laptop. My mom still has access to the parent portal from consequences resemble. What if she calls the cops? Brandon asked. Suddenly anxious, whoa, and have the opportunity conversation, a very serious conversation. Brandon nodded, trying to convince himself they were about to do something they'd all regret. Zara had developed a routine of evening walks round her neighborhood, partly for exercise and partly to clear her head after the stress of the past few weeks. Her father had encouraged it. The street lights cast long shadows among the houses, and the only things that broke the silence were far-off television programs and the occasional passing car. Too many places to hide in the park, and no one to watch her. Better to remain on the sidewalk where porch lights and possible assistance were close at hand. She quickened her pace a little, moving toward the next corner where she could turn back. She asked, her voice firm in spite of the adrenaline pumping through her veins. We want answers. Think you got yourselves in trouble and need someone to blame? Brandon's voice shook with fear and rage. You ruined their lives. Jake lost his scholarships. Tyler S. facing charges. What did we ever do to deserve this? Actions have consequences, Zara replied calmly. Perhaps you should have thought of that before you put your hands on me. The words hit like a slap. Jake's expression stepped in another step, his fists balled. Justice. You think destroying our lives is justice for some silly prank? Silly prank? Zara's serene mask cracked a little. You embarrassed me in public in front of half of our school. You ripped my uniform. You left me helpless and fearful. Good, Jake growled. Perhaps now you know how we feel. The difference is you decided to be bullies. I decided to stand up for myself. Well, Jake said, moving closer, we know you're responsible for everything that has been done to us. Oh, I do want to know what you were talking about. In the direction of home, the doors of the truck slammed behind her. Hey, Zara, she quickly recognized Jake's voice. Her pulse quickened. But she continued to walk, pulling out. She was 3 blocks from home, walking along Riverside Park when she noticed the car engine slow behind her. Zara's training took over right away. She did not turn, but gave the attacker a look through her peripheral vision and reflected in a parked car's window. A dark pickup truck was driving very slowly along the curb, keeping pace with her. saying that maintaining normal activities was important for psychological health. During operations Wednesday evening at 8:30 p.m., she set out on her usual route through the quiet suburban streets. The sun had just set an hour before, and most families were already settling into their evening. Father S' voice in her head when you retailed, "Never let them decide the location of the confrontation. Either lose them or make the encounter on your own terms." Her phone to phone her father. "Do I even think about it, Tyler?" S' voice sounded to her right side. He decut through the park, and now was standing between her and the intersection Brandon emerged from. Behind a stopped car to her left, forming the triangle, "They set this trap for us. We have to talk," Jake said, coming up behind her, "and this time Daddy's not around to save you." Zara halted her walking and stood with them in front of her, keeping all three of them in view. The closest residence was 50 yards away, and the porch light had been turned off. "No witnesses. What do you want? Stop lying." Tyler's face was flushed with rage. "Initially, first Jake gets busted for drugs. Just after we teach you a lesson, then I get caught selling vapes. You think we re-dumb? I darkened with awareness, so you confess that you've been plotting this entire thing. Confess that bullies always get what's coming to them. One way or another, Tyler. Congratulations," Tyler said. "You won. We all screwed happy now." Not yet. The admission floated in the air like a challenge. Jake's eyes grew narrow with danger. "What else do you want from us? I want you to know that there are people in this world." As he swept by him, he staggered, gasping, and she shifted at once to confront Jake, who charged her from behind her father. His conditioning took over entirely. Strike quick, strike hard, create space. Jake grabbed for asphalt with a hard cry of pain. Tyler had recovered and charged. Again, this time more warily. He was larger and stronger, but Zara was quicker and more trained. She feinted left, then struck right, her palm connecting with his nose with a sharp crack. Blood sprayed as he reeled backward. Jake, still winded, but enraged, produced something from his pocket, a knife. Enough games foes defeated in under 30 seconds. Zara stood over them, panting but silent as the truth of what had just occurred hit her. These boys had surrounded her. On the ground in different states of hurt, one girl standing quietly in the background, and a knife glinting on the road. "Nobody move," she ordered. "Hands where I can see them." Zara spread her arms slowly. "Officer, my name is Zara Washington. These three boys ambushed me, and one of them produced a knife. I defended myself." Tyler was sitting up, blood running from his broken nose. "She attacked us. We were just trying to talk the dark with a knife, and she defeated all three of them in the distance." She could hear sirens getting closer. Someone had phoned. A second cruiser pulled up, followed shortly by an ambulance. Officer Martinez, his partner Deputy Collins, started cording off the area, while paramedics attended to Jake, who was dazed, coming round. "I need to call my father," Zara said serenely. "You're not calling anyone until we get to the bottom of this." Officer Martinez countered what was going on here. "They followed me from my house." The police time to own up to what she did on all of them. The first police car arrived in under 3 minutes. "It's flashing," he gasped. "You want to play war? Let us play war." The blade shone, but Zara slipped beneath his arms and punched his solar plexus. As he doubled up, she brought her knee up into his face, but he was able to twist away at the last instant. Brandon reached for her. "From you unfrightened people who woe and be victimized just because you believe they should be." Brandon took a step forward, his face distorted with desperation. "We get it, okay? You re-tough, you re-clever, you defeated us. Can we call it even now?" Even. Zara's tone rose slightly. "You think this is even, you three up against one girl?" "Jake, do want," Brandon yelled from the ground. "This is mad." But Jake was past reason, fueled by rage and desperation. Charged with the knife, stabbing at her midsection, Zara caught his wrist with both hands, using his momentum to turn the blade from her body. She twisted hard, pinning pressure on his thumb joint until he yelped and let go of. "Trapping me in the darkness like cowards." "We are not cowards," Tyler burst, lunging at her. Zara stood ready. She dodged Tyler's attack and swung her elbow into his ribs, the side, but Zara spun and caught his wrist, utilizing his momentum to flip him over her hip. He crashed under the streetlight. As he moved, Zara's mind went crystal clear. Every lesson she had learned about defending herself with weapons coming flooding back. Before he was able to recover, she struck her knee into his stomach, and then threw an uppercut, which jerked his head back. Jake crumpled, half-conscious and bleeding. 3. Light shining through the blackness of the suburban street. "Officer, Martinez emerged, hand on her gun, as she surveyed the scene, 3 teenager boys lying to her with a knife. Officer, Martinez asked, indicating the weapon alongside Jake's unconscious body. That's not ours. Brandon protested, rising to his feet with a wince. She must have planted it. And cornered. Me, they threatened my family previously this week, and then they came tonight to follow through on those threats. That's a lie. Tyler spat blood onto the pavement. She's been setting us up for weeks. She got Jake arrested, got me busted for selling vapes, and now she's trying to frame us for assault. Deputy Collins looked up where he was taking pictures of the knife. This matches the description of a stolen blade from Morrison's garage last week, family. On his face, Zara, are you injured? No, Dad? I'm okay. Did you do as protocol dictates? Yes. Sir, I attempted to hold my ground, called for assistance when I couldn't, and used minimum required force when cornered. Officer Martinez scowled. Protocol? What kind of protocol? Self-defense training, Commander Washington answered. I've been instructing my daughter in basic protective skills. Since these boys began pestering her, the words lingered in the air like a confession of guilt. Commander Washington's face darkened. So you acknowledge that you targeted my daughter at school? Brandon, seeing Jake's blunder, attempted to backtrack. It was unlike that. It was just normal high school stuff. Normal. Zara's voice had a hint of rage for the first time. Reported it missing. Jake's eyes went wide as he sat against the ambulance. Officer Martinez looked at her partner, the racial overtones in the boy's words were becoming impossible to ignore. I think we need to have some very serious conversations. Downtown, she said, regarding harassment, assault with a deadly weapon, and civil rights violations. Civil rights. Brandon's voice broke with fear. Targeting someone because of their race is a federal crime, son, and from what I am hearing, that S-bumper, I didn't take anything. Someone has been plotting this at that moment. Commander Washington. S-truck sped around the corner. He'd been listening to police scanners and heard his daughter. In dispatch. He pulled quickly up and went to the scene, his military posture apparent in every step. Sir, this is a crime scene, warned Officer Martinez. That's my daughter, he said, flashing his ID. Commander. David Washington, retired Navy SEAL. What's her status? She seems to not be injured. Claims she was attacked by these 3 boys. Commander Washington sized up the man with a professional gaze. 3 bigger adversaries. Down. His daughter standing still, a weapon that clearly didn't belong to her pride and concern ward at school, bullying her. How prior to Zara being able to respond, Tyler burst out, this is crazy. She's been ruining our lives. Jake lost his scholarships for college due to her. Because he had brought drugs on campus? Zara responded calmly. Drugs you planted, provide proof. Deputy Collins moved forward. We're going to have to get everyone down to the station to give statements. This is a multifaceted case involving numerous allegations. My daughter will not be speaking without a lawyer present, Commander Washington stated sternly. That's all right, I have nothing to hide. Jake labored to his feet with the help of a paramedic whom you hear. That she does not have anything to hide since she had it all well planned out. Precisely what exactly? Officer Martinez asked. Getting revenge on us for putting her in her place at school? Pushing me into a mud puddle and ripping my uniform apart in front of everybody was standard. You didn't belong on our team. Tyler yelled, you never belonged at our school. Precisely what occurred here. The 3 boys exchanged looks of increasing horror as the implications for the law set in what had begun as harassment over a spot on the cheer gob was now a possible federal hate crime investigation. Commander Washington rested a protective hand on his daughter. Gob's shoulder. Officer Martinez, my daughter has been chronicling harassment. The weeks that followed the arrest altered Zara's life in ways she could never have imagined. What had begun as a private battle for dignity became a national debate, Kim told Zara and her father in their living room. We've been constructing a case around this systematic, race-based harassment. This is more than assault. This is a federal violation of civil rights. Tyler Knox's parents had to take out a mortgage to pay for representation. Brandon Mills's mom took on extra shifts to pay for a public defender in outrage over the boys' actions 2 weeks later after the arrest. CNN's Anderson Cooper sat down with Zara and her father in their living room. Zara, when those 3 boys approached you that night, what was racing through your mind? Cooper asked. That this was what my father had been training me for. Zara said levelly, Not the fight itself, but the media fallout started with a minor local news story but blew up when video of the battle was discovered. Someone's Ring doorbell camera had filmed the whole exchange, and it was shot 3 big boys. Gang up on one girl, Jake Draws, or defending myself, Commander Washington. You taught your daughter how to fight? Do you have regrets about that, David Washington? S face was steel. My only regret is that I had to do it. But I'd rather have a daughter who can take care of herself than one who quietly suffers the interview. Attracted 20 million viewers and generated national discussions regarding self-defense, parental accountability, and institutional racism in schools, in the meantime in Westfield. The town where I grew up, the community was very. A knife and Zara whips them systematically. Commander Washington nodded approvingly. What do you want from us? Everything? Every text message? Every Facebook post? Every witness statement? We were going to construct an airtight case that gives people notice. Meanwhile, the 3 boys' families were about bullying, racial harassment, and justice within American schools. The initial big change came when the FBI launched a federal hate crime investigation agent. Sarah Kim arrived at the Washington house. 3 days after the assault, her badge and stern expression. For weeks, we have proof of rising threats and racial targeting. The culmination was inevitable tonight. As event, we need to review that evidence. You have it in the hour. As the boys were packed into different police cars, Zara finally permitted herself to take a breath. The fight was over, but the actual struggle for justice had only just begun. Making the stakes clear as day, the knife assault was only the culmination. Agent scrambling to keep up with the crisis. Jake Morrison's dad retained Harrison Wells, the state's costliest criminal defense lawyer, for $50. All 3 of her attackers teen. Girl fights off racist attackers, screamed the national headlines. Call news shows ran the footage on a loop. Social media erupted in support of Zara. The best thing that happened to me when the first time I had to decide between being a victim, divided. Many of its residents defended Zara and applauded her bravery. Others felt the boys were being inappropriately prosecuted for normal teenage conduct. The school system found itself under federal investigation. Principal Martinez was put on administrative leave pending examination of how the harassment was dealt with. Coach Wells said no hate crime charges. He serves 18 months, and this all goes away quietly. Because of her race, we've got him on tape. The plea is assault with a deadly weapon, conspiracy, and federal hate crime offenses. For years, minimum, that's his whole life, he should have thought of that before he decided to terrorize a child. Wells attempted a different tack. What if he issues a public apology, demonstrates remorse? Has he ever shown remorse? Wells sat silently for a long time. He was wrestling with the case. Agent Kim cut off his jailhouse calls yesterday. He called Miss Washington the N-word 6 times and vowed to finish the job when he gets. Reynolds was let go on the spot. When it was learned he'd known about the boys' actions and had not reported them 3 months into the legal proceedings. Plea negotiations commenced in earnest. The evidence was overwhelming, and shown remorse would plead to 18 months in juvenile hall. The last court hearing was held on a chilly March morning. The courthouse had protesters surrounding it, some supporting Zara and calling for justice, others accusing the boys of being overpunished. Media, the bench, 30 years serving up everything from white-collar embezzlement to murder cases, but the Westfield high hate crime case had garnered more interest than anything in her career. We rehear for the sentencing of defendants Morrison, Knox, and Mills, who have pleaded guilty to charges of assault, conspiracy, and federal hate crime violations. She said Zara sat next to DHN in a plain blue dress that her mother had purchased. Of revenge only, Brandon expressed remorse, writing apology letters and attending racial sensitivity counseling. The community pressure mounted as the trial date drew near. Westfield High's football program was banned for the season. The school board had emergency sessions regarding new anti-harassment policies, property values, text message plotting the attack, social media messages riddled with racial slurs, testimony about harassment over the course of several months, and the Ring camera video that recorded the attack. Jake Morrison's lawyer Harrison Wells met with Rebecca Chen in her office on a rainy Tuesday morning. My client will plead simple assault. Chen laughed icily. Your client pulled a knife to try to attack a 16-year-old girl out? Does that remind you of remorse? The lawyer's expression fell as client's case had just become hopeless. Similar discussions were had with Tyler and Brandon. attorney's Tyler S. messages raged with violent fantasies. In the area started to decline as families thought of relocating away from the bad press. Jake Morrison's family bore the brunt of the economic consequences. Morrison Construction lost 3 big projects when clients did not want to do business with the company Jake's mom, who had been a real estate agent, saw clients not willing to be represented by the mother of that racist kid. Tyler Knox's dad lost his construction job. When the company decided his connection with the case was not good for business, his mom put in more hours at the diner. But the family was on the brink of bankruptcy. Brandon Mills's divorced mother struggled worst of all as a hospital employee. She was bombarded with questions and criticism from coworkers. Several of Brandon's extended relatives severed ties, embarrassed to be connected to the case. The boys themselves were kept in isolation facilities to avoid cooperation of their accounts. Jake, residing in the county adult jail because of the weapons charge, rapidly developed a reputation for his racist outlook and constant disciplinary issues. Tyler, in the juvenile center, spent much of his time in protective custody following several altercations with other inmates who had witnessed the news coverage. Brandon, also in juvenile jail, took advantage of counseling sessions and wrote scores of letters of apology that his attorney hoped would be considered by the judge at sentencing. 6 months later, the media exposure had generated a documentary offer at book proposals and speaking requests. For Zara, she declined them all, concentrating instead on her grades and her new status as student body president, a position she won. The landslide election plea deals were finalized in February. Jake would plead guilty to all the charges in return for a sentence. Recommendation of 4 years. Tyler would take 3 years for his part as primary enforcer, Brandon with his cooperation. Trucks were parked along the street for blocks within. Judge Patricia Reynolds read over the case file one last time before the crowded courtroom. She had been on for the event behind her commander. Washington stood tall with military composure, flanked by school and community supporters. Madison Clark and some of the other cheerleaders had driven down to provide backing across the aisle. Seated, the 3 youths with their lawyers, their families occupying rows behind them. Jake's parents stood, visibly aged by stress and public shame. Ended in a premeditated attack with a lethal weapon. The evidence indicates months of planning, coordination, and increasing violence. Fueled by hatred, she opened a heavy folder text messages between the defendants. Mention Miss Washington as that N-word cheerleader and various means to dispose of her social media postings indicate they were encouraging others to harass her, witness accounts affirm. Tyler's family seemed financially and emotionally worn down. Brandon's mother cried quietly, having already lost a son to the justice system. DHN stood up to make her and commanded the attack. Your recent messages demonstrate no remorse, only ongoing racial venom and threats of violence. Jake's legs appeared to give way slightly. Please, Your Honor, I made an error, several errors, over months of deliberate malicious intent and overt racial animus. She reviewed her sentencing guidelines. I sentence you to 4 years in state prison and 3 years supervised probation with required racial sensitivity counseling. Closing arguments. Your Honor, this case. In his family's honor, Mr. Knox, stand up. Tyler stood, his hands shaking visibly. His family couldn't have an attorney like Jake, as in his public defender looked. Tyler's knees weakened somewhat. His girlfriend Ashley, who had stood by him through the initial phases, had ended their relationship months earlier. When the jailhouse tapes were made public, Mr. Mills Brandon could hardly stand, his face pale and stir with tears, in contrast to his co-defendants. He had spent months in sincere regret, penning letters, attending counseling, and fully cooperating with investigators. You were the follower in this group, but you, flustered by the federal spotlight, you were an active player in this conspiracy. Your communications demonstrate that you promoted violence, used racial slurs as more than high school bullying that went too far. The defendants participated in a concerted effort of racial intimidation that they made her life miserable for several months prior to the ultimate assault. Harrison Wells, Jake's lawyer, tried damage control. Your Honor, my clients were angry, confused teenagers who made bad decisions. They've lost their chance at college, their futures, their reputations. They've learned their lesson through punishment. Have they? Chen rebutted. Producing transcripts yesterday, we overheard jailhouse calls where Mr. Morrison is using racial language against the victim and vows to complete what we began on release. Mr. Knox has made such comments regarding taking his revenge to the courtroom. whispered with distaste. Jake's dad visibly deflated in his chair, realizing his son had just signed his own death warrant. Judge Reynolds scanned the papers with increasing displeasure. Mr. Morrison, stand up. Jake got to his feet unsteadily, his orange prison jumpsuit, a marked contrast to the costly varsity jacket he once wore so proudly in 30 years on this bench. I've even watched a lot of young men make blunders and learn from them, but what you and your fellow co-defendants did goes along beyond teenage mistake. You harassed a classmate because of her race, took that harassment 2 months, and finally assaulted her with a deadly weapon and threatened harm to her family. Wells attempted to interfere with your honor. If I might speak to you, may not. Judge Reynolds' voice sliced like steel. Mr. Morrison, you were the leader of this conspiracy. You orchestrated the attack, brought the gun. You are permanently excluded from all Westfield School District premises and barred from contacting the victim or her relatives. Jake's mother suddenly dissolved into tears. Behind him, his father sat with a granite face, looking at the total loss of his son's future. Repeatedly and physically engaged in the attack, 3 years state prison, 2 years probation under the same counseling terms and contact limitations, was a willing participant in racial harassment. An assault, but your compliance with the inquiry, your attendance in counseling courses, and your expressed regret set your case apart. 18 months in juvenile prison, and then 2 years on probation, and 500 hours of community service at racial justice organizations. Brandon, his mother cried tears of relief. 18 months was tragic, but it was not the years-long imprisonment, but by the choices they made to commit racially motivated violence. She gazed straight at Zara. Miss Washington, would you like to give a victim impact statement? She started, her voice steady and ringing to all corners of the hushed courtroom. I wanted to get the cheer team good grades and a normal high school life. These defendants stole that choice from me when they chose I didn't fit in their world. She turned back to look the 3 boys straight in the face. You thought you could bully me into hiding. You thought your threat and violence would scare me off and move schools. Zara rose slowly. Under the burden of every eye in the room, the girl who 8 months before had been pushed into a mud puddle was gone in her. Zara replied firmly. These boys learn that actions have consequences, no matter who your family is, how much money you have, or what you think you're entitled to. What message? Do. You have 4 other students facing harassment. Document that she carried for nearly a year. Long enough, the battle was finally over, and justice had been served. The true triumph was not the prison time or the vindication in the courtroom. It was the fact that she had stood up to hatred and violence with courage, intelligence, and determination, and won one. Year later, Zara Washington stood it. Everything. Tell trusted adults, and remember that you have the right to defend yourself and demand justice. Commander Washington wrapped his arm around his daughter's shoulders as they prepared to leave. I'm proud of her for standing up for herself, she expected. Judge Reynolds spoke to address the crowded courtroom. Let this case serve. This court is in recess. As the gavel sank, the courtroom exploded into contained pandemonium. Reporters rushed to the doors to submit their reports. This newly renovated auditorium speaking to an assembly on anti-bullying and racial justice. The irony was not lost on her, speaking in the same school where 3 boys had previously attempted to break her for the color of her skin. A year ago, I thought my biggest challenge would be learning cheer routines. She started, her voice ringing through the full auditorium. I never thought I'd have to battle for my right to be in this school without harassment. The room was hushed. Listening to every word. In the front row sat Principal Williams. The defendants were handcuffed and led out, their families behind them in different states of loss, rage, and destruction. Outside the courthouse, Zara and her father climbed the steps while cameras flashed and reporters yelled questions. Miss Washington, how do you feel about the sentences? As a warning to each parent, every school official, and every young viewer, hate crimes will be prosecuted to the fullest degree of the law in my jurisdiction. The defendants' futures were ruined not by their victim. Reaction to their violence. Place was a young woman who had known hatred and come out stronger. I didn't want any of this to happen. Rather, you've shown me that in order to keep bullies from hurting other individuals, her voice became stronger. I hope prison will teach you what empathy and common decency could not. I hope you will learn that every individual deserves to be treated with respect no matter what race they are, and I hope that when you are released, you spend the remainder of your lives making amends for spreading the hatred. Jake's eyes flared with unremorseful anger. Tyler gazed at the floor in shame. Brandon seemed actually shattered by remorse and the repercussions of his decisions. It's called a CNN correspondent. I feel like justice was served. And for each student who would never have to endure what she endured due to her bravery as she strode towards her car amidst the sea of supporters and media, Zara felt something lift from her shoulders. The podium in Westfield High, Martinez's replacement, and the new coaching staff and school board members, the old guard that had facilitated the harassment, were gone, replaced by administrators dedicated to building a safer place. But I learned something valuable in all of this. Zara went on. Bullies only have the power. You give them when you stand up for yourself and speak out for justice, they lose that power. How subdued all the others became when you spoke of the knife, they had to hear it. Zara responded, "Some still believe what was done to me was boys will be boys no more. They do un't they woe." And after last week, news coverage of Jake Morrison, Jake's reputation had been ravaged by the news he'd committed a racial act at the state prison, assaulting a black prisoner and adding on further charges. His initial 4-year sentence was lengthened to 7 years. The Golden Boy quarterback was now a career offender with a white supremacist reputation. After the assembly, Madison Clark came upon Zara in the hallway. Now team Captain Madison had spearheaded the transformation of the cheerleading program. Zara had received a full academic scholarship to Harvard, her essay on rising above racial harassment and being a voice for justice. Impressing the admissions staff, she'd even received scholarship invitations from 12 other schools, all desperate to claim the girl who became a symbol of strength and resilience. "I still think back on," she explained to her father, "you do and have to continue doing them. You know, you've already made a difference here." And anonymous reporting mechanisms for students. The football program had been completely restructured from the ground up with coaches whose value was character over victory. The cheerleading team beside him, he seemed different. Thinner, older, with eyes that expressed true remorse instead of the desperate panic she recalled from the trial. "Zara, I do expect you to forgive me," he started, his voice trembling slightly. "I just wanted you to know that I know now how wrong we were, how much we hurt you." Now actively recruited students from every demographic and emphasized supporting the entire student body. Most notably, the school district had employed Dr. Angela Foster, a nationally acclaimed speaker, and counseling had worked on him. But she still guarded herself. "What do you want from me, Brandon?" "Nothing." That space a little bit safer for all who followed her. The fight was finished. The win was won, and Zara Washington was ready for whatever else came next. Hope you liked that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss the next one. Meanwhile, I have personally selected 2 stories for you that I think you will like. Have a great day. "I'm moving to Lincoln High," Brandon went on, starting over. "But I wanted to let you know that I realize now that what we did was wrong." "And you were within your rights to fight back?" Zara gazed at this broken boy, who had once assisted in ruining her uniform and humiliating her before her fellow students. She felt no triumph in his defeat, only a weary acceptance that justice sometimes took the form of this uneven, incomplete, but real. "I hope you actually learned from this, Brandon. I hope I just wanted to own up for what I did and say, sorry, really sorry." His mother came forward. "Sorry to Zara. Not of forgiveness, something that would take a very long time, if indeed it ever came. But acknowledging that people do change, even after doing horrid things." Standing in her doorway, seeing Brandon Mills walk out of her life forever, Zara thought back to the path she'd taken a year ago. She'd been a girl trying to belong in a hostile world. Now she was a young woman who de-established that justice. "I failed as a parent to raise my son with the values he should have. I'm ashamed of what he did to you," the social worker smiled encouragingly. "Brandon has undergone intensive counseling and community work. He wants to spend his life making sure that what happened to you doesn't happen to anyone else." On racial equity in education, as Director of Student Safety and Inclusion, her very first initiative was establishing peer mediation programs and restorative justice circles for conflict resolution. Prior to them, I know, but perhaps one more student will see it and understand that they do have to tolerate being treated poorly. The changes at Westfield High had been thorough. The new administration had put in place zero tolerance, harassment policies mandatory. What you said that very first night, she into one centered on inclusivity in school, any of it, Zara took the question. Seriously? Previous year had been tough death threats from white supremacist groups, non-stop media coverage, the tension of testifying in courtroom proceedings, but it had also brought some surprising dividends: friendship with students. Who'd looked up to her for her bravery, respect from adults who'd seen her rise above adversity, and the realization that she'd helped make real change happen. Remember, she said eventually, regret that it was necessary. But I don't regret spirit over social status. That was incredible, Madison exclaimed, smiling. Did you notice? Have you heard anything about Tyler? Madison asked. He's been writing letters. Zara replied, apologizing, asking for forgiveness. My dad thinks he might actually be changing. Tyler Knox had gone a different route in jail after other inmates beat him up for recognizing him from the news. He'd asked for protective custody and started taking education programs. His letters to Zara, which she read but didn't answer, expressed genuine regret and an increasing realization of his behavior impact. And Brandon, he's getting out next month. His mom reports he wants to change schools and start fresh elsewhere. Brandon Mills had served 18 months. The room had changed since her training had commenced. New equipment, pictures of her different accomplishments, and newspaper articles recording their triumph. How was the assembly? He inquired, stopping in his exercise. Good kids are paying attention. Of his sentence and done his community service working for racial justice groups, unlike the old friends. He'd spent his detention learning about racism and its impact. His transformation seemed real, though Zara was still careful about believing it. That night, Zara discovered her dad in the basement gym exercising as he did every evening. Some of them told their own tales of harassment afterwards. Commander Washington beamed proudly. You've become quite the orator, Harvard-S. Going to be lucky to have you. Had thought about making your own? Justice system, when the system doesn't work, do you regret it fighting back? Her phone vibrated with a text message from her guidance counselor. News crew here once. Interview regarding new anti-harassment policies. Interested. Another interview request. Diversity training for all employees. Mounted 2 weeks later, Zara had an unplanned visitor, Brandon Mills. Stood hesitantly on her front porch with his mother and a social worker. She looked at him carefully, seeing no arrogance or hatred that pushed him into taking part in her harassment prison happening to the other students. You spend the remaining years of your life ensuring other children never endure. What I went through, I will, I swear. As the children walked out of Zara's life, she experienced an odd feeling of closure. Was feasible even when it was impossible. She battled for her position in the world and prevailed. More significantly, she made